Welcome back to You're All Doomed, the Friday the 13th podcast that's been making up Jason, Friday the 13th, Part 13, one episode at a time. I'm Prop Master Brian.
And I'm Alan Smithy. We pick back up at the Commando base camp, where between the interrupted transmission from the headset and the fact that they can hear the engine of the ATV cut out suddenly in the distance, this group immediately thinks, okay, we better kick into gear. Something's up. They are professionals, after all. I see the group splitting into two squads of three, and they each head off in a direction to recon and see if they can either find their fallen comrade or uncover who might have messed with him. Even in squads of three, they're remaining fairly spread out, but I kind of see this as the scene like in First Blood when the local police arrive on the mountainside and begin pursuing John Rambo, and he's able to kind of pick them off one at a time. This is sort of our version of that sequence. So, like one guy I see getting spiked with some sort of environmental trap, like even if Jason is, holding a flexible branch that's, he's like tied a stake to, or even like a sharp knife or something, and when the guy approaches, he lets go and the thing just like swings out and spikes the guy.
So you feel like Jason has still had the opportunity to kind of like booby trap the outskirts of his surroundings, or did he do this like as soon as he saw the commando unit arrive?
Yeah, I think he's making it up on the fly. Once he saw them setting up camp, a lot of this stuff, he like this tree branch thing would take 10 seconds for him to figure out. And even, because he doesn't know where they're going to be. So he's got to be able to get ahead of them. And it illustrates like how adept he is at moving through the wilderness quietly. And, it's kind of a fun, he's hunting them while they're hunting him scenario. The guy with the night vision goggles is peering around, and we're kind of getting a POV shot, almost like found footage of what he's seeing through the night vision goggles. And I thought that would be a cool opportunity for Jason to just explode from the darkness. And, we may not even necessarily have to see what happens to this guy, but we just like see Jason reaching right for the camera, which is the night vision camera. And then, you could hear a scream or something.
One thing I like about Jason's approach so far is that he actually agrees with Delaplane in the sense that they need to keep this quiet. Because like Jason doesn't want a lot of gunfire, doesn't want a lot of commotion going on, because that is going to attract even more attention to the area. And so he's like, I'm going to try to dispose of these guys as quietly as possible to just minimize any kind of attention that this is going to bring.
Mm-hmm. The night vision goggle guy was armed with a tactical knife, which Jason uses to take out the third member of that squad. He stabs the guy once in the groin and then in the eye.
The first thing I thought of here, Greg, was a video that we watched recently called Surviving Edged Weapons, and which is just that. It's basically like a police training video on how to survive knife attacks. And so when I'm listening to Jason kind of dispose of all these commandos, I'm trying to think of which tactic that I learned would I be able to employ here to survive the attack.
And the commando is responding with a thick Wisconsin accent. Squad number 2 is some distance away. So Jason hightails it over to take care of them. The first guy is prowling around with one of those rifles that has a flashlight on the front of it, and he's near a large tree from which Jason drops down, sort of like he did in Part 6. Only this guy, instead of beheading with a machete, he bends him over backwards at the waist, vertically.
So you would say that this commando is willing to bend over backwards to do his job.
Welcome to You're All Doomed, the podcast with dad jokes. Now, I think I'm going to need your help a little bit with this one, Brian, because this is going to be the 13th kill of the movie. And we've got 2 people left, one of whom we need to actually survive. But I felt like in honor of the 13th victim in our Friday the 13th movie, this should be a machete kill, but it should be a really kick-ass showstopper machete kill. So, I mean, I have kind of a rough idea, but I would love to know, if you think it's good enough or if you have an alternate idea. I thought that, these two remaining guys see what happens to the dude who just got bent in half. And they've got a machete, as part of their survival equipment. So they hit Jason with the machete, but he pulls it out of his body and then swings and catches one guy in the neck and the guy right behind him in the head at the same time. So one guy gets killed. The other guy is just very badly wounded, but you could see where Jason might think he was dead and think he was finished.
I think it works because there's part of me that was thinking that it needs to be more ceremonial, but it doesn't have to be for Jason, because for Jason, this is just another kill. He's well over 100 at this point, but for our purposes, it's the 13th kill of the 13th movie. So to us, it's important and we have to come up with something ceremonial. But for like Jason, he's not necessarily going to go out of his way to do something extraordinarily different to commemorate the occasion, right? He's just gonna,
right.
It's
I mean, in fact,
kill.
If anything, he'd be happy to be using a machete again. So
yeah. So yeah, that's, to me, that was the biggest, forgive the pun, but it's the biggest takeaway, is that now Jason has a machete in his arsenal again.
The two bodies hit the deck, and Jason stands there watching for a few seconds just to kind of savor his victory and to make sure that his work is done. When they don't make any moves, he stomps off into the darkness again. There are 5 dead commandos that we need to cast here. The first one I thought of was, even though he's no longer with us, Billy Drago, star of Delta Force 2 and The Untouchables.
Yeah, I like him. He was a great baddie back in the day.
Mm-hmm. The next death was I didn't say who Billy Drago was.
Oh, okay.
So let's say Billy Drago was the guy that got the environmental trap, got hit with the environmental trap.
And the commando with the unfortunate vision in his night vision goggles was played by, and I took a similar route here in kind of dipping into the old action well, but I went with Michael Dudikoff.
Oh, nice.
American Ninja himself.
American Ninja. Nice. The guy who got stabbed in the groin with the tactical knife was Joe Manganiello. Best known for playing Flash Thompson in the Sam Raimi Spider-Man.
And that's it. For the commando that bent over backwards for his unit, I had Henry Golding.
Snake Eyes?
Snake Eyes himself.
And the guy that got macheted in the head was played by a former 80s action star, Brian Bosworth.
Stone cold, baby. Does he still have the mullet?
No, I looked him up. He actually looks pretty good. But I think for this, when we put him in this movie, we'll give him a mullet wig or something.
I think that's a good idea. Even though it does seem like Jason disposed of this commando unit pretty quickly, it did take a while. And so we're actually now in the pre-dawn hours of the day. There's the two last commandos laying on the ground next to each other, and we see one of them suddenly, very slowly, kind of start to move and crawl away. And this is the guy that had the neck wound. So Jason mistakenly thought that he had killed both of these guys, but one of them is still hanging on as much as he can. So he is crawling / limping his way back to the construction site so he can warn the others.
What if he even maybe located the ATV and managed to start it back up and ride it back? And when he starts up the engine, we cut to Jason hearing that and realizing that the guy made it. So he kind of begins following in that direction also.
Yeah, I like that a lot because we do need a way to lure Jason back to the campsite because as far as Jason is concerned, I mean, he's not completely stupid, but he doesn't necessarily know that this commando unit was employed by Delaplane at the construction site. He just knows that this is yet another attack on him, and so he was reacting to defending his territory. But yeah, then this survivor is kind of like slumped over the wheel of the ATV and just kind of like haphazardly is driving his way back to the camp, which isn't too far away. But yeah, Jason hears it and he's kind of like, arr, and he may even make that noise. I don't know. And realizes like, wait a second, I got to figure out where this guy is heading to. But before Jason makes his way back to the camp, the surviving commando makes his way to Delaplane, and Delaplane hears the ATV approaching the camp, and he comes out to see what's going on, and he sees this guy who's just completely covered in blood and absolutely no energy, slumped over the wheel of the ATV, and just with whatever energy he has left, he looks up at Delaplane and he just goes, "It's Jason." And Delaplane just turns white as a sheet, and because he knows that he's probably kicked the hornet's nest here, and if these 6 or 7 commandos couldn't take care of it, then he's probably about to be in a world of shit.
John Burrow is also there and now realizes that the shit has hit the fan. They've reached the point of no return, and he needs to tell Megan what has happened and what's going on. He feels that he has to tell her in person, face to face. So he leaves to head home, where he knows that she's still beginning her day.
And that's where we end up next, back at Megan and John's house. And it's still early enough that Megan's in bed, and
alone.
Greg, despite I was going to say, despite your fantasies, Ginny is sleeping on the couch in the other room.
Okay. Boring.
But John comes home and tells Megan and indirectly Ginny the truth, which is basically that those kids were killed at the camp and it was covered up, and he was basically blackmailed to cover up the cover up, and that the reporter that's missing was probably also killed by Jason, and that this commando unit that had come in, which Megan probably up to this point wasn't even aware of,
right,
had come in to take care of Jason, but instead they all got methodically picked off. And
I'm sure she takes it well.
She does not. She is royally pissed, and she calls the police station for reinforcements to meet her at the construction site, and in no simple terms tells John to stay behind, basically saying, "You have done enough. When I get back, you better be gone."
We racked up 5 kills this episode with the 5 commandos that were dispatched by Jason.
To learn how to repair a gaping neck wound, you'll just have to tune in next week to the next episode of You're All Doomed.